Thanks very much. Thanks very much for having me. I'm just need to point out I'm not actually a politician. I used to be. So that was my confession in life. I'm Liam Maxwell. I'm the National Technology Advisor. The best way of describing my job is that I'm here to try and create more growth in the digital economy. Fundamentally, that's where we come into in the Department of Digital Culture, Media and Sport, is the attempt there to try and create the conditions in the UK so that people will make more money from the digital economy. That means more jobs and fundamentally more tax and national insurance is the way that we get measured. But fundamentally today I'm just going to talk a bit about how we get it, and it's a bit of a call to arms really to try and help us work out how to get big clumsy machines to innovate. So I work for a big clumsy machine and we have managed to do it. Therefore we think that if there are lessons to be learned and things that we can do to help, please come to us, because, again, the thing we need is economic growth. I sometimes joke that I'm in a startup. I'm in a tax collection and public service delivery startup with a military wing. We are in our, I worked out earlier, our 364th round of funding, and we have tried very hard to create the ability to grow our economy, but we also had to face a fairly big challenge ourselves to make a big, clumsy machine, rather like a big, regulated machine that needs to rely heavily on compliance to change. Oh, he goes forward too fast. And this is the area we're going to talk about a bit. This is how we defined the tech that we worked on. We had a huge push on digital public services, but also that relies on talking about what's underneath those services. So the challenge that we faced as a government was, and some of you may have seen these value chain and approaches, we had to change very quickly to start using new models. And as new technology emerges, government needs to be able to work with that new model as quickly as possible. The problem we've got is that all of that is happening way faster than we can ever deal with. And so we render ourselves irrelevant. And in many ways, governments, very like large financial large financial industries, regulate themselves, make themselves special, put everything into the wrong structure, so that we ended up looking rather like this, that all of the stuff that we could share and do simply was all done specially for us. And we sort of doubled up by making sure that we'd outsourced all of that to somebody else to go and do. So we sort of created this amazing system of, really in many ways we looked at it rather like people were having Stockholm syndrome. This was a fantastic way of doing stuff, we thought at the time, because to change would be too difficult. And this was our supply chain. So rather like most of the economy at that time, we were thinking big is beautiful, big is great. These were where most of our suppliers were. And what we did, and I suppose the way of saying the proof of the pudding is in the eating, is that we created this. So we broke out of our supply chain of large, big, solid suppliers and started to buy from lots of different people. And the reason we did that was because we were trying to access innovation. We wanted to find a way of finding the best solutions rather than finding the way that complied the most with our procurement laws. And you'll see that 48% of that is now with small businesses. And we all find one of these things. This is our particular square of despair that we had in government. One, capability. So we had to get great people to come in and work in government. And the idea was get people to come in and work for you for a period of time. Don't be there forever. That meant that people could attract and come to work in a place where they have a huge impact on people's lives. I always used to joke that they had the capability to cause a nation-scale crisis just within our job. You are dealing with very, very large impacts, but actually the technology is quite small, and therefore it helps and you can get people to come in to work with you very quickly. Security, we all went through a great security change, so we stopped trying to teach charities and the charitable sector and the people that regulate that in the same way that we treat things in the military sector. So we had a huge change of culture around security, ultimately being do it properly and do it at the right scale. Oh, hold it, sorry. And then we had a lot of legacy kit. We solved that by creating our own Hotel California for government IT, which is where you can put all the old stuff, and it can sit there and it can die. You can check it in, it can never leave, which means that people can then start innovating using proper cloud technology with a cloud-first policy and a cloud-first policy in procurement. And procurement was about buy things from the best people. Don't buy things just because people are great at filling in forms. Buy things from great people and buy things and innovate. And very much that was do this. Stop buying in your silos. As government, we all have silos. We have silos and silos within silos, and everybody within their same space feels precious. And we would buy one solution for one part and one solution for another. You need to start multi-sourcing. It reduces the risk. It increases the capability of other players coming into the market. And if you're a large supplier, you can then give people and give small businesses that great opportunity of a regulated, straightforward customer experience so that you can help support businesses grow and innovate. So we found we couldn't move fast enough, and that meant we had to change shape. So that's why we moved. We started thinking about not silos, but platforms and the ability to grow things in a platform way. But we also made sure that we focused on what we did. So all of that is great policy, but this is where it really starts to matter. How many people have actually done the service? How many people completed using your service? How much did it cost? And what was your take-up digitally? Those are the fundamental outputs or outcomes that you want people to, and you need to measure your services on before you can get people to start to change properly. Those things are the core of what we did. Because when you find out that some transactions, instead of a digital transaction which can cost, a great digital transaction can cost under 6 pence, we had some at 15, 30, some at hundreds of pounds. It meant you could identify where the waste was and help people design so that they can move to a better, simpler digital solution. We also use the 4 opens to do it, and this is what I would really like to press on people to just think about what we're doing and the way that this succeeded. We had to introduce some form of competition into our market, and we had to do that in a way which was sustainable and would mean that people continued to work on this even when we had cycled out and changed. And so we made sure that we used open standards. You may have seen we had an enormous political fight at the early sort of 2011, 2014 about open standards. But we need open standards because we use the internet. I know that sounds basic, but it's right at the heart of an approach. We use open source because we need speed. Okay? We need to be able to move quickly. We need to be able to share what we do with other components. And we need speed and security, which is why we moved to open source. We needed to open up our data, and you will have seen a huge move to transparency over the last few years. But we still realize we need to open the data we own. Because if we don't, it's that great thing for government, if we don't do it, somebody else will. A little example for you. So at the moment, we have an organization which provides mapping data, and we provide mapping data across the country. But everyone ends up building their own map, or they start using an open source version of mapping. And our mapping business is built rather like a power business that we distribute, we sell to distributors, and it goes out. And we had a really crystal clear example of this the other day when one of the executives there said, yeah, the thing is that if you're in a power company, you don't sell people power direct to their kettle. You have to distribute it so that it goes out and people can get billed, etc. The interesting thing is in our area, and in the world of data, you sell direct to the kettle. You can open it up directly to the consumer. The consumers can use and consume and feed back open data. That is the biggest force for disintermediation that we have across our industry, and it will be the same within the finance industry. The ability to open up data and use data effectively will open up and make change happen within the industry far quicker than you think. But also, and the little line on there was, also anecdotes aren't data. So much and so many decisions have previously been taken just with anecdotes. Using data has been tremendously powerful. And then open up your markets. Open up markets so that small businesses and large businesses can turn up with smaller projects, which means that you can innovate, which means that you can grow. And what that's delivered for us has been huge uptake in open source, high percentage of small businesses getting engaged, much faster speed to be able to solve problems and solve solutions, and also a focus on outcomes, on actually, does it matter? Did what you were doing actually work? We'll talk a little bit about what's next, just a little bit just for government, because we're different to a lot of other organizations because we have a monopoly. We actually genuinely have a monopoly. And so for us, we can build solutions here which our colleagues can use and our colleagues in other governments can use. We've fundamentally seen how it's simple for governments to collaborate and inside government to collaborate. But actually, one of the best examples of that, if this will move, is this example. Because we have no desire to run anything in Israel. We have no desire to run anything in New Zealand. We've all got great governments that do these things. But we can collaborate because we actually do the same thing. And so one of the first examples of this, and that you will see much more of this in our market, in the government market, is because we have geographical monopolies, we can share what we do. We can collaborate. Open source actually really works within the government space because we're not competing. We don't compete with Sweden to issue a driving license to Swedish citizens. They do that. We do it here. We do the same thing. And so one of the things which we found most striking was that when we we built it in the open, but now we're moving much more to open source solutions. The reason GovIL looks really like gov.uk is because it is. That's really a fundamental change. And if governments can start to share these components where there's no competitive edge, there's a great opportunity to start sharing more within the financial community and within the fintech community so that we can start to innovate more. This helps us get rid of all of the boring stuff, all of the commodity, all of the stuff which is capable of everybody doing and enables us to start building better solutions. Really, I think the reason I was asked to talk today is if we can do this in possibly the most inflexible, most reliant on compliance, slowest to react organization in the country, as we were, if we can do this, then certainly in the finance market and in the fintech area, you can do it. And you're already doing huge amounts of this. But really what I'd say is there are companies now that are small businesses that are running critical parts of our infrastructure. And they could never have done that before. They can do it now. The same is true within the financial markets. And so all of you that have got small businesses and all of you that are starting innovative businesses and trying to push for new ways of doing things, our message to you is keep doing it, keep pushing. If you need help, shout, ask us to help because you create the jobs and you create the wealth and the economic growth that we need. And so that's why we're very strongly in support of this conference and very strongly in support of the financial sector. But the main thing is we've done it to some extent. You can do it too. And I hope that gives you some inspiration to keep going. And I do really mean it. If you need to talk about it, if you find things in your way, let us know because you're the people that generate the economic growth on which we base all of our services. So thank you very much. And I'll hand you back over to the team. Thank you.